In January 2026, a strange and deeply troubling incident unfolded. European leaders, not traditional adversaries, issued widespread condemnation of burgeoning American interest in Greenland. Their outrage was swift, sharp, and unmistakably aimed at their longest-standing ally. This condemnation was framed by many as nothing less than a betrayal of America. It painted the United States, Europe's long-standing protector and benefactor, as a predatory power. The narrative suggested America was acting outside the bounds of established partnership. The Danish Prime Minister, among others, went so far as to warn that U.S. actions could irrevocably end the transatlantic partnership. Such pronouncements hinted at a profound disconnect between rhetoric and reality, an alarming lack of historical perspective. Prominent European figures like Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, and Keir Starmer joined the chorus. They universally criticized what they termed American assertiveness and unilateralism. Their unified front underscored the depth of European indignation. Yet, this outrage conveniently overlooked a glaring double standard. European nations have consistently underfunded their own defenses for decades. They simultaneously relied almost entirely on American protection and military might. The symbolic deployment of European troops to Greenland seemed a particularly ironic gesture. This action diverted resources and attention from actual, immediate threats closer to Europe's borders. It was a projection of indignation, not power. The core issue, laid bare by this contrived crisis, appears to be European ingratitude. This ingratitude persists despite repeated and costly American sacrifices throughout history. It is a pattern that has become increasingly difficult to ignore. Europe, in 1914, largely dismissed the United States as a provincial backwater. Its powers saw America as an unsophisticated, distant land, utterly incapable of influencing their sophisticated geopolitical games. This short-sighted view would prove tragically misguided. European empires then plunged themselves into a self-destructive conflict of unprecedented scale. The Battle of the Somme, Verdun, and countless other hellish engagements decimated a generation. Millions perished in a horrifying testament to Europe's imperial ambitions. By 1917, exhausted and bleeding profusely, Europe desperately called for U.S. intervention. Their pleas were no longer dismissive but urgent, recognizing the dire need for America's untouched resources and manpower. They needed a savior from their own making. The United States responded with an astonishing mobilization. Over 4 million soldiers were trained, and 2 million deployed to the battlefields of Europe. This gargantuan effort was unlike anything the young nation had ever undertaken. American military contributions were crucial and decisive. Victories at Belleau Wood and the Meuse-Argonne offensive broke the stalemates and the German will to fight. These engagements showcased American tenacity and tactical prowess. U.S. intervention made German defeat not just possible, but inevitable. This came at a steep price, with over 116,000 American lives lost on European soil. Their sacrifice fundamentally altered the course of history. Europe's response to this salvation was, regrettably, to squabble over the spoils and nurse old hatreds. The Treaty of Versailles, rather than fostering peace, set the stage for future catastrophe. The lessons of mass destruction were swiftly forgotten. The European powers, tragically, failed to learn the lessons of the Great War. The interwar period was characterized by short-sighted appeasement and drastic military cuts. This strategic negligence invited the next global conflict. Disgusted by the endless European conflicts and political machinations, the U.S. retreated from European affairs. America focused inward. preferring isolation to entanglement in seemingly intractable continental disputes. This retreat, however, could not last. Europe's rapid collapse under Nazi Germany in 1940 was horrifyingly swift. France, a major power, fell in just 6 weeks. The miraculous evacuation at Dunkirk underscored the desperate situation, yet it was a retreat, not a victory. Britain, alone and under relentless assault, issued a desperate plea for U.S. aid. Winston Churchill's urgent letters to Franklin Roosevelt highlighted the existential threat facing Western civilization. The fate of democracy hung by a thread. The U.S. responded with the groundbreaking Lend-Lease program, providing $50 billion in aid. This made America truly the arsenal of democracy, supplying vital war materials to nations fighting against tyranny. It was an unparalleled commitment, the ultimate U.S. role in European liberation, culminating in D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge, was monumental. This monumental effort cost another staggering 400,000 American lives. The beaches of Normandy and the forests of the Ardennes bear witness to this sacrifice. In the aftermath of World War II, America undertook an unprecedented act of generosity. The Marshall Plan poured $13 billion into war-torn Europe. This sum is equivalent to over $150 billion in today's currency, a truly staggering investment. The U.S. rebuilt Europe, not as a conqueror, but as an ally and benefactor. This was an act of profound strategic foresight and altruism, unparalleled in the history of victorious nations. It laid the foundation for decades of peace and prosperity. The Berlin Airlift stands as a testament to American resolve. The U.S. determinedly protected West Berlin from the Soviet blockade. This lifeline operation, often overlooked, cost another 31 American lives, but it prevented a humanitarian disaster and upheld freedom. Crucially, the U.S. spearheaded the establishment of NATO. This alliance provided an American nuclear umbrella for European security. It was a tangible commitment to defend European sovereignty against the rising Soviet threat. Throughout the Cold War, the U.S. deployed approximately 7,000 nuclear weapons and 430,000 troops in Europe. This massive presence served as a constant deterrent, shielding Europe from potential Soviet aggression. It was a burden voluntarily assumed. American taxpayers funded this extensive European defense network for nearly 5 decades. This allowed European nations to divert their resources. They built expansive welfare states, secure in the knowledge that America would guarantee their protection. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, European defense budgets predictably plummeted. With the immediate threat seemingly gone, European nations deepened their reliance on American security guarantees. They disarmed, America remained armed. NATO's agreed-upon target of spending 2% of GDP on defense became a widely ignored metric for decades. Only a handful of European nations consistently met this minimal threshold. This dereliction of duty underscored a deeper problem. The full extent of European military weakness was brutally exposed by Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Decades of underinvestment left European armies unprepared, undersupplied, and largely ineffective. The emperor had no clothes. Even after the stark realities of war returned to the continent, the EU continued to falter. Its failure to meet ammunition production targets for Ukraine became a critical issue. The continent once again relied on U.S. aid and production to meet urgent needs. This historical narrative leads us back to the recent condemnation of the U.S. over Greenland. It exposes a profound European hypocrisy. They condemn American assertiveness while simultaneously being entirely dependent on American protection. Europe's inability to defend itself is stark and undeniable. Without U.S. soldiers, U.S. ammunition, and the ultimate U.S. nuclear deterrent, the continent would be strategically vulnerable. This reality is deliberately obscured by political rhetoric. European leaders consistently prioritize expansive welfare states and social programs over robust defense. They demonstrate a glaring lack of the will to sacrifice for their own security. This is a choice, not an inevitability. However, American patience and generosity are not infinite. The current dynamics place an unsustainable strain on the transatlantic alliance. The future of this partnership, once thought immutable, is now profoundly uncertain. Europe has made a deliberate choice not to truly defend itself. In doing so, it has repeatedly bitten the hand that has fed and protected it through multiple global crises. This unsustainable arrangement cannot persist indefinitely.